What if the reason your towels smell sour has nothing to do with how you wash them? What if it isn't weak detergent, not a machine that needs replacing, not a fabric softener you forgot to buy? What if it's a bacterium that survives ultraviolet light, a 5-hour countdown that starts the moment your washing machine shuts off, and a bathroom that was never designed to be a bathroom at all? Here's a fact almost nobody expects. Japan is one of the most humid developed countries on Earth. Every June, the rainy season, Tsuyu, pushes humidity above 70% for weeks at a stretch. Balconies flood. Sunlight disappears for days. And yet, in a 2024 survey tied to Panasonic's own consumer research, 7 in 10 households said they were now drying more of their laundry indoors than ever before. Sealed rooms, no wind, no sun, no line strung outside a single window. By every rule you've been taught about laundry, that should be a losing formula. Wet fabric, closed doors, zero airflow, the exact recipe for the smell you're trying to avoid. Except it isn't. And the reason has almost nothing to do with what's inside your detergent bottle. Picture a one-room apartment in Nagoya. 7 in the morning, rain against a window with no balcony to speak of. A stack of bath towels sits on the bed, pulled from the washer 20 minutes ago, damp sides folded inward so they'll finish on their own. A habit passed down, never questioned. Down the hall, the bathroom door is shut. A small panel on the wall reads Ganzao, Kansu, dry, and hums quietly, pushing warm air across a rod of hanging shirts. 3 hours later, everything is warm, folded, and smells like almost nothing at all. Not flowers, not fabric softener, nothing. And in this one narrow corner of housekeeping, nothing might be the highest compliment a towel can earn. The myth. The easy explanation is the one the internet keeps repeating: better Japanese detergent, or a cultural obsession with cleanliness. It's a tidy story, it's also wrong. To understand what's actually happening, you have to stop thinking about laundry as a washing problem and start thinking about it as a drying problem, because that's exactly how Japanese researchers reframed it more than a decade ago. The real culprit. This isn't a rare complaint. In 2008, Kao Corporation surveyed 580 women across the Tokyo metropolitan area about their laundry, and 86% said they detected that exact sour, wet dish rag smell on clothes that had already been through a full wash cycle. Not occasionally, regularly. For years, nobody could fully explain what was actually causing it. Not sweat, not mildew, something else with no name. In 2012, a research team spanning Kao Corporation's Household Products Division and the Department of Microbiology at Aichi Gakuin University, led by Professor Yoshiaki Kawamura, isolated the cause and published it in the journal Applied and Environmental Microbiology. The culprit, a bacterium called Moraxella osloensis. Here's what makes the discovery stranger than it sounds. This wasn't a new bacterium to science. For decades it had turned up, rarely in hospital records, an occasional cause of infections like meningitis or bloodstream infections in already vulnerable patients. Nobody had ever connected it to something as ordinary as a bath towel. It's not exotic in daily life either. It lives on human skin, in kitchen sinks, in ordinary soil, practically everywhere. Under a microscope, it looks unremarkable. But Moraxella osloensis has 2 properties that make it uniquely suited to hijacking your laundry. First, it tolerates ultraviolet light and dehydration far better than most bacteria its size. In lab testing, some strains survive direct UV exposure up to twice as long as common bacteria like E. coli, which is exactly why sun drying kills the smell and shade drying so often doesn't. Second, when it feeds on the residual skin oils, a wash cycle never fully removes. Its waste product is a compound called 4-methyl-3-hexanoic acid. That compound is the smell, not a metaphor for it, the literal chemical responsible. When researchers went back and tested actual towels pulled from real homes, Moraxella osloensis showed up in 86% of them, the exact same percentage of women who'd reported smelling it in the first place. The complaint and the chemistry lined up almost perfectly, and it doesn't stop at the laundry basket. When the same research swabbed surfaces around ordinary homes, Moraxella osloensis turned up on 1 in 3 washing machine. Filters tested. The bacteria isn't only landing on your clothes from the air. In a third of homes, it's already living inside the machine that's supposed to be removing it. Here's the part that should unsettle you most. This bacterium isn't reliably defeated by washing. A hotter cycle helps, but most washing machines in Japan and everywhere else run cold or lukewarm by default to protect fabric and cut electricity costs. Which means Moraxella osloensis usually survives the entire wash. It isn't removed, it's rinsed, spun, and repositioned, waiting for exactly one thing: time. Left wet and starved of airflow, the bacteria multiply, and multiple sources in Japanese consumer and appliance research converge on the same number. Once fabric holds residual moisture for more than 5 hours, bacterial activity and the odor it produces escalates sharply, not eventually. Not if you forget the laundry in the machine. 5 hours, a clock that starts the moment your spin cycle ends, whether you notice it or not. That's the number this entire video keeps circling back to, because almost every habit that causes damp smell is really just a habit that lets 5 hours pass unnoticed. Why Japan? So why does this happen so much more in Japan than almost anywhere else? Two forces collide, and neither one is really about laundry at all. The first is climate. Japan sits in a humid subtropical band for most of the year, and the Tsuyu rainy season turns outdoor drying into a 6 to 8 week gamble. Hang a towel outside at 80% humidity, and it can take longer to dry than the same towel sitting in a sealed room with a dehumidifier running. The second is architecture, specifically the Japanese unit bath. Most apartments built from the 1980s onward use a sealed, fully waterproofed bathroom module, floor to ceiling, engineered to be hosed down rather than mopped. It was built for exactly one purpose: washing bodies. Somewhere along the way, it quietly became something else. The default indoor drying room for an entire country. A drainage floor, a sealable door, often a built-in dry function. The one-space renters without balconies, ground floor units, or single-aspect apartments could hang laundry in without negotiating with the weather. That's the twist hiding inside the hook. The room doing the most laundry drying in modern Japan was never built with laundry in mind at all. It just happened to be waterproof, sealable, and impossible to ruin, which completely by accident makes it a near perfect incubator. Warm, humid, low airflow unless the fan is switched on deliberately. Exactly the conditions Moraxella osloensis needs to turn 5 hours into a smell no amount of rewashing fully removes. Appliance manufacturers noticed the pattern long before most customers did. Panasonic and Sharp have both built entire product lines: bathroom dryer units, console function washer dryers, standalone dehumidifiers, around this exact 5-hour window. Not to sell convenience, to sell a race against a bacterial clock most people don't know they're running. 3 habits. Once you understand this is a race and not a chore, 3 ordinary habits stop looking optional. Habit 1, separate before you hang. Piling towels or heavy garments on top of each other traps moisture between layers. Precisely the low airflow pocket Moraxella osloensis thrives in. A couple of centimeters of space between each item, not touching, not overlapping, meaningfully shortens drying time. Less time spent inside the 5-hour window before the fabric is actually dry. Habit 2, airflow beats heat. A circulator or box fan aimed sideways, low across the floor rather than straight up, moves more moisture out of a room than most people expect, often outperforming a dehumidifier running alone. Combine the two, and indoor drying times documented in Japanese appliance research drop substantially compared to a still, sealed room. Habit 3, hang by thickness, not by size. The folded band of a towel or the hood of a hoodie can stay damp at its thickest point for hours after the rest of the garment feels bone dry to the touch, which sets up the one thing almost nobody accounts for, because dry to your hand and dry to a bacterium are not the same thing. Here's the part most laundry advice skips entirely. Fabric can feel completely dry on the surface while its inner fibers, especially in thick cotton, terry cloth, or anything with a hood, waistband, or seam, are still holding enough residual moisture to keep bacteria active. Surface dry is not the same as core dry. You can fold a towel that feels perfect against your palm, stack it in a closet, and still be sealing in exactly the conditions Moraxella osloensis needs, just somewhere you can no longer see or feel it happening. This is why towels and gym clothes are disproportionately the worst offenders. Not because they're washed less carefully than anything else in the hamper, but because their thickness makes surface dry and actually dry further apart than almost any other fabric you own. The honest fix was never a better detergent, and it was never drying longer purely out of habit. It's drying until the thickest point of the fabric is dry, which for most towels takes longer than anyone assumes and almost never happens by accident in a pile. So if the title on this video promised you Japan's secret to laundry, that never smells, here's the more honest version of that claim. There is no secret. There's a 5-hour countdown, a bacterium that doesn't care what your detergent cost, and one waterproof room that was never supposed to be doing this job in the first place. Would you actually check the thickest point of a towel before folding it away? Would you move a fan sideways instead of pointing it straight up? Small enough questions that almost nobody asked them. Right up until they're standing in a hallway, wondering why a freshly washed shirt somehow smells worse than the hamper it came out of. There's a reason Japanese households wash their entire body standing on a small stool before they ever step into the bathtub itself. A habit so different from how the rest of the world bathes that it's part of why this exact room turned into a laundry drying machine in the first place. That's a different mystery, and it starts with a shower head, a stool, and a tub nobody is allowed to get dirty in.